Hello and welcome to the Aquarius Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Reed. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by OASE, makers of fine filtration products like the Biomaster canister filter and BioPlus internal filters. If you're looking for power filtration made in Italy with German engineering, look no further. Use the link in the show notes and check out these great filters. Now, on to the interview. Today's date is Friday, September 20th, 2019. My guest today is Dr. Neil Clarke. Neil is a longtime hobbyist with major scientific credentials. He has a Bachelor's of Science in Marine and Freshwater Biology, a Master's of Science in Aquaculture, and his PhD in Ecotoxicology. So Neil, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Randy. Glad to be talking to you.
You are, let me make sure I got this right. You are now the second international guest from the UK onto the podcast. So thank you for helping me. George Farmer, so the aquascaper, famous aquascaper, yeah, Mr. George Farmer.
Yeah, you did. You mentioned him. Yes. Okay.
Yep. So hey,
that'll do. Second will do me.
You're just helping me to expand the international depth of the podcast. So thank you very much, Neil. And now, so I need to set the scene for everybody, and kind of embellish a little bit in the story of how you and I, our first interaction. So Neil, you and I were both on the recent empty Amazon tropical fish collecting trip that was started in Iquitos, Peru, and we went up the Amazon River, the Rio Nanay, and a couple of the other little tributaries. So that's where you and I, we spent a week together, right? But how it started though is my trip down to Iquitos, Peru was flying with my family from Seattle to the San Francisco Bay Area in California for them to stay with my in-laws because my wife has, we've got our toddler and we've got a 3-month-old. And so, I didn't want to just leave her with those kids for a whole week. And so her being able to spend time with her family really helped to make this trip possible. From there, I flew from the Bay Area airport down to Los Angeles, from LAX to Lima, Peru, and then from Lima, Peru to Iquitos, right? So this is a fairly lengthy travel. I mean, 16, 17, 18 hours in the air. So we land in Iquitos, Peru. And I'm super excited, right? I'm super excited to be there. I think we landed like midday, something like that. And I get off the airplane, go into the airport. And sure enough, the first time ever in my life, there's a guy standing there holding a sign with my name on it. I'm like, oh, I finally get to have that moment.
Yeah.
And whose name is also on that little placard is a gentleman named Neil Clarke. And I'm like, all right. So I think I saw Neil's name before on the email of who is going to be on the trip coming down to Iquitos. I'm like, okay, so he's rolling with me. I guess he must be on this flight. Cool.
And our very first interaction is, I'm ever so sorry I don't have my luggage.
So you're jumping straight to it. So I go to the little taxi car, right? And I'm just waiting there. And you and I, we had kind of talked, and it's, Neil had lost his luggage, or the airline had lost Neil's luggage. And it's like, oh man, that sucks, man. Like, I feel really bad. No worries. I'm just going to wait in the car while you go to the counter with Guillermo, who's like the fixer for the entire thing. If you need something, if something wrong happened, Guillermo's going to take care of it for you. So he takes you over to the airline counter. And I'm thinking in my head, like, all right, 10 minutes. Like, maybe this is going to take 10 minutes. I'm just going to hang out outside, do some filming.
It was a lot. I've got a feeling it was a lot longer than 10 minutes.
For
me, it was a long time.
It was a lot longer. So, like, the euphoria.
Can I just say, it was Peruvian time. So under Peruvian time, we had to wait for the young lady to come to the desk, and that's what took the time.
Oh, nice. So it wasn't even like you guys were looking something up on the computer. You're just standing there.
Oh, no. We were just waiting for somebody to turn up.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I didn't even know that story. But yeah, so I'm like, I'm in the parking lot, and the guy's like, do you want to get in the car? It's air conditioned. He had the car running and everything. I'm like, man, I was just on an airplane for 16 hours. The last thing I want to do is just sit down in a car. I'll just enjoy the nice, Amazon humidity and heat and sunshine and stretch my legs. But after like a half hour, I'm like, man, I'm not liking this Neil guy. Like he's holding up progress. I'm ready to get into town. And
I'm standing at the desk going, and I'm waiting 10 minutes, and Guillermo's going, she'll be here in a minute. And I was being polite, and then 10 minutes later, I'm like, Guillermo, where is she? And eventually she toddled over.
Yeah, and so that's what took.
It took forever.
And so you had to do whatever process to say, hey, I lost my luggage.
Fill in forms, look on computers, give her pieces of paper.
Yeah, so
write
it's
it all out in English, try to get them to understand English, and where is London and things like that. Yeah,
yeah, and so
yeah.
and even after all that time, it's not like, oh, they just
Mm.
found it in the back of the airplane. Like, you still didn't have
No,
your
no,
luggage at that point.
no. It's just
Um,
filling in a form.
So we meet each other or we say hi again in
Mm,
the parking lot. We
mm.
both get in the car with Guillermo and the driver. We headed into Iquitos, and within like the first minute or two of talking with you, it's like all of that animosity just completely went away. And I'm like, all right, Neil's a cool guy.
I,
He and I, we're
I
gonna.
didn't know there was any, but there we go.
Oh no, there totally was. I was like, man, this guy is keeping me from eating like some Peruvian food and
Yeah,
relaxing in the
but
hotel. And
you just didn't realise you're on Peruvian time, and there was lots of it.
so I know that for next time, and anybody listening to this now can be aware of Peruvian time. But no, from that car ride, it's like, no, Neil's a super cool guy. We're gonna get along just fine, and sure enough, we did.
Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. That's the way I felt as well. I knew there wasn't going to be a problem. It was going to be a good, fun trip, and it was great. Yeah.
yeah, and so you and I, we actually spent a couple days together, just kind of
Mm.
hanging around Iquitos, doing some stuff before the
Yeah,
trip even actually
yeah,
started. So that was yeah,
yeah.
that was a lot of fun.
Particularly the manatee farm. I particularly the manatee farm was great fun.
I completely forgot about that. So yeah, we went out to the Amazon
How can you
Research.
forget? How can you forget a man or a boy dressed as a manatee
Yeah,
in
yeah.
40 degrees of heat, wearing a great big blooming suit?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, with his little with the tip pocket. Yeah, I did. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the order of events is a little bit jumbled up for me still because it was such a
Oh
whirlwind
yes.
kind of
Hmm.
trip. But yeah, we went out to the Amazon
Hmm.
Research Center with Dr. Anthony Mazarol, who I'll have on the podcast. I actually that interview that I did with
Hmm.
him, Neil,
Hmm.
that you were actually
Yes.
present for, the audio file got
Yes.
corrupted.
Ah.
So the audio is it every 10 seconds there's a fairly large audio distortion. So that particular recording kit kind of crudted out on me. The interview I did with Devin Graham on the boat, same exact thing. The interview I did with Dean and I, so Dean, myself, and Corey were in my hotel room, and Dean
Yeah.
and I were wearing the lapel mics that fed into the phone through and using the
Hmm.
recording software. Both of our
Yeah.
audio was corrupted. Where Corey, using my separate Zoom little recorder, his was perfect,
Hmm.
and I was actually able to piece back to actually boost my audio level and Dean's audio level to actually have a passable
Yeah.
episode. And so,
Um,
of the 3 interviews, only one was usable, and so that's
uh,
definitely sad. So I need to reconnect with Dr. Anthony and Devin to get
yeah.
those
I hope
interviews.
you do. I hope you do because it'd be well worth getting an interview with him.
Absolutely. So enough about that, Dean.
Mm.
Excuse me. So enough about that, Neil. Where does it all begin for you, right? So somebody that's got a bachelor's of science in marine and freshwater
Yeah.
biology, a master's in aquaculture, PhD in ecotoxicology, like what's
Yeah.
like your earliest memories in the hobby?
I didn't start in the hobby. I started down the local river. There's a little river called the River Lee, and it's like 3 foot wide and 6 inches deep. And I'm probably just messing around with a net and a bucket just like everybody else. And there's one species in there. It's a stickleback. It's a stickleback or nothing. So I end up with a little bucket with a little sticklefish in, and I take it home and say to my dad, "Can I keep the fish?" And it's like, "No, you can't. Yes, you can. No, you can't." And in the end, it ended up in a foot long tank in the garage, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I stuck some algae in there, and I didn't know what to feed it. And I don't know if there's a company called Super SUPA, and they do a fish food which is said to be made from dog biscuits that they grind up and they're supposed to kill fish. That's a lawsuit. But anyway, it died, and that was the first fish that it died, and that kind of hooked me. The fact that the fish died, I didn't like it that it died, and I wanted to know why that fish died. And from then on, I just started keeping fish.
Oh wow. Okay, that's that interesting. So
That
what?
was at the age of 11.
Wow.
I didn't bump into a discus fish until I was about 13 and a half.
Okay, yeah. So tell me about that then.
It's exactly the same story. When you talked to Auntie Mazarov, it was made me laugh because it was exactly the same story. I got friendly with a guy who had a shop in town, and he took me upstairs, and he was this great big tanks, 6 foot tanks, like 6 foot long tanks, and they're full of these discus, and they're Ribena coloured. I mean, if anybody knows about discus, we'll talk to you about Ribena coloured discus and where they come from and everything. And I look at these fish, and okay, fine. I went downstairs, and it's this big tank, and in there was a wild brown discus, and I just walked up to the tank, looked at him, he looked at me, and he was like, "What's your problem, mate?" And I looked at him, and I thought, "Holy crap, this fish seems to have a soul. It seems to be talking to me with its eyes." And that was it. I was hooked. 13 and a half years old. One adult male brown discus, and that was it. Me done. Within a few weeks, I'd bought some. They were little royal blues, and by then I had just an ordinary aquarium, an ordinary 3 foot aquarium with really. It was just full of plants, full of just lots of little ornamental fish, just an ordinary average tank. And I threw these discus in, and they all died. And I was like, "Why did my discus die?" And that was it. Hooked again.
Mm.
It went from there.
And so,
And I spent a good time killing fish in in a community tank with nothing was correct. The water quality wasn't correct. The other fish in the tank, everything you could possibly do wrong that maybe lots of people do to start with. I did it when I was 13 years old.
so then, at the age of 11 or 13 years old, were you going down
Yeah.
to the local library? Were you trying to reach out to fish clubs? Like, how were you trying to
I,
learn
I
from
had
these
an
experiences?
well, I think I said to you this, but I had an encyclopedia of fishes, and I've still got it somewhere on the shelf. And I was down the local fish shops. Yes, I was going through all the local shops, looking at all the local fish. And by the time I was 13 or 14, I knew every fish that was in that encyclopedia. I had a little book with all the names written in. And I think by 14 and a half years of age, I was working in the local shop on a Saturday day, doing
Oh, nice.
Saturday days for 16 quid in the local shop with the guy I knew very well because I was in his shop every Saturday.
And now for contrast, how much was a discus at that time? So if
They
you're
were they were they were £5 each. My first, they were about the size of I don't know how. Yeah, not much bigger than your thumbnail, and they were £5 each.
okay, and so just to refresh my memory, we talked about this on the trip. A quid is the same as a pound, right? So a quid is basically how,
Yes,
how Americans we say
yes,
like
a quid. Yes, I did say this to you once. I always forgotten again. A quid is a pound,
okay,
indeed.
okay, and so that's like us saying a buck, like a $1, $1.
Yeah,
That's just, okay,
yeah,
just your
yeah.
slang. All
That's
right.
it. Yes,
Okay, so
yeah,
a sizable portion of a day's wages to pay for one of these discus.
yeah. Well, I had to save my pocket money up for quite a while to buy 5 or 6 little Royal
Hmm.
Blues. Yes, probably took me a lot of washing the car and things like that. Yes.
And then were you able to, did you eventually get to a point where you were breeding discus where you're being successful with
No,
fish?
no. I was forced to go to college, and when I went to do my A levels at college, I was told you got to stop all that stuff
Mm,
and go to college and get your education. Go to college, do your A levels. So all the fish keeping stopped. It didn't start again until I owned my own flat. I was 24 years old. I moved out of my parents, bought a flat, and within months there were fish tanks down the wall, and I
nice,
was straight back into discus.
nice. Okay, and so
Yeah,
so walk me through that through that
yeah.
that period of your fish keeping life. So you've
There,
got
there
your
was nothing. There was nothing in those years. I was literally. Well, that's not actually true. There were years when I was allowed to have one tank on the sideboard, and it would be a small 2 foot tank, and there would have been a few community fish and the occasional discus, and the same old thing, local hard water with a community tank, and it just nothing was going on until I finally got my own place. And then when I got my own place, I started moving into deionized resins, CBR cartridges, water purification, RO membranes, and all that kind of thing.
mm,
And bare tanks. Up until that point, it was just community tanks with an under gravel filter and just the same tank as anybody else would have.
mm-hmm.
And I specialized when I moved out and got my own place.
Yeah, yeah. So talk to me about that specialization, right? So now you've got your own place.
Yeah.
What did your operation look like, and like what were you doing? Were you just take me down that journey?
I think it started with a couple of tanks, and then it got expanded. and I was doing crazy things like building rack systems, having people make me tanks up. I think I expanded up to about 14 tanks at one point. I think I spent 500 quid once on a fish trip. Came back with a whole bunch of discus. It was a learning experience. It was all about, water quality, filtration, food. Who do you buy your fish from? Should you buy Asian? Should you buy German? I started making my own beef heart. I always make my own beef heart. Yeah, it was the complete thing where you have to go through and you have to learn it piece by piece.
What was your end goal, right? So like you're doing this, you're making your own beef heart, racks, you're investing a
Yeah.
lot of money.
I've always done this. I did the same thing for year after year after year, which is I like to buy a very small fish and grow it all the way through to adulthood. I've always done that.
And
I had the
then
occasional pair. I had the occasional pair. I had the occasional time when they hatched, but I never took it further than that. For me, I always did the same thing. I always got them when they were 6 or 8 weeks old, grew them through to a year, got a little bit bored, sold them, and went out and bought the nicest fish I could find. And the quality changed. The quality just got, it went up. It went from average fish to good fish to expensive fish to I want the best discus.
and so what did you find then in this period of your time? Like where were the best fish coming from? Where were the best discus coming from?
I mean, we said we wouldn't be controversial, but
In your experience and in your opinion, I think that's a perfectly. I think if we caveat it with that,
okay. Well, I will turn the question on its head and say that I went to college and I learned a lot about diseases and the life cycle of diseases. And you've been to a tropical country, and you probably got a little bit of a feel for parasite loads and worms and deworming and all that kind of thing. And all I would say is that if you live in a tropical country and you live somewhere and it's open, the life cycle of parasites can be completed in a tropical country. So if you're in Penang or Singapore or anywhere like that, you're up against it because the life cycle of those parasites can be completed. So you've got a harder job to keep the fish clean. So generally speaking, I would say that German discus are cleaner than Asian discus, and I'm not putting down Asian discus at all, but it's just a more difficult job because they live in a tropical climate.
Yeah, I mean, you could say
And
that.
most of them,
I was going to say you could even
yeah,
apply that then. So Asian climate, Florida here in the United States has that kind of tropical
yeah,
climate. So it's not just Asia,
yeah,
but it could also be the life cycle could be completed in a place like Florida as well.
yes,
And that's interesting. So from a
yeah,
business standpoint, they have these countries with the more temperate tropical climates. Tropical is the right term there. They have the inherent advantage of because the weather is more like the fish's natural environment. They don't have to do artificial heating. They can typically have the outdoor, large, inexpensive operations.
yeah,
But one flip side of that is that because they can, as you're saying, the parasites can complete their life cycle. That is a potential disadvantage. Where in somewhere like Germany, which is not like it is not like the
well, no,
Amazon in
because
terms of its
they're
climate.
in a factory unit. Yeah, they're going to be inside. It's going to
Hmm.
be a recycle system. It's going to be much cooler. There's not going to be sediment. There's not going to be plants. There's not going to be birds. There's not going to be insects. Everything that you need to complete the life cycle is going to be a lot less. And
Yeah.
therefore, you've got a much greater chance of producing, if you like, cleaner fish.
Yeah,
Yes.
but that's a disadvantage. It comes
Mm,
with the upfront disadvantage of you are in Germany. You're in a place that gets
mm,
really, really, really cold in the wintertime.
yeah.
You have to put in all this infrastructure. You have to put this entire
Yeah,
system
you
in
got the heating.
place.
You got the heating bill, and you've got cost of food is going to be more. Wages is going to be, of course, your costs
Yes,
are
yes.
massively inflated compared to Asia.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
of
that
course.
that's definitely interesting to look at it from that positioning of you may have a tropical country may have the advantage of you don't have to pay a heating bill, but on the flip side you may have a disadvantage of having to then battle these natural elements that
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah,
that doesn't have the weather advantage they don't have to battle it because they are controlling everything, and that those things don't naturally occur where you're doing that. That's interesting. So if I were to set up a fish farm here in Washington, which gets super cold, well, not super cold, but it gets fairly cold, and we get a couple snows every winter, I would potentially have that advantage where, that life cycle completed.
Yeah, it's generally the money thing that wins. It's there's an awful lot of fish that come from tropical climate because of the cheapness of it.
Yep.
We haven't mentioned the water supply. A lot of people in Asia, they can use a tap water, a conditioned tap water. They don't have to use purifiers.
Mm-hmm.
They don't pay the wages, and they don't have the massive food bill, and they don't have the big wages bill. And that's normally the factors that win out. That's why you get an awful lot of fish from tropical climates.
I wouldn't be surprised as this hobby catches up with other consumer areas. Let me develop out this thought. So, here in the States, there's much more of a move to higher quality, more natural foods, kind of breaking down the manufactured foods out there and just going to the, I don't like to use kitschy terms, but the farm to table kind of approach. And people are willing to pay more for a higher quality. And so maybe at some point in this hobby, we will see that people are willing to spend more money on those neons or cardinals or whatever it may be, wherever the source is coming from, some type of a stamp of approval that yes, this is a higher quality fish. You will pay X% more, but your chances of success are that much greater. And maybe that shift is kind of happening right now in the hobby, or maybe it's something that will happen. But I feel like in a lot of aspects of life, the convenience and the cheapness of, I don't know, like from the 50s to now, where basically we sacrificed.
Yeah, well, I mean, my old lecturer, Bernice Brewster, she taught me a lot of college. She taught me a lot of college at college. And when I went to see her last year, what she said to me was that we are struggling a lot in the UK in that I think I said to this, that all the fish clubs have gone, and the interest has died a bit. So we've actually kind of gone full circle at the moment in the UK, in that there's less people keeping fish. It's gone full circle right back to just bread and butter stuff, and it's harder to get the more unusual stuff and the rarer stuff. So we've actually gone, if you like, to the bottom of the barrel, in that our boom time was the 80s and the 90s, and we're actually in a bit of a lull at the moment. I don't really understand why or how, because I'm not so familiar with the hobby. I'm more familiar with the discus world. But yeah, I mean, we're actually on a down cycle at the moment where they're only aiming at the general fish keeper, and all the specialists and the clubs have taken a downturn. So as much as I would like to agree with you, in my country, it's not happening that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and with that comes cheap fish.
Yeah.
Because if the guys aren't specialists and they don't know the hobby, they aren't going to pay for more expensive fish, because they don't see any reason for it, because they've got no background knowledge whatsoever. A fish is a fish. If that's the case, it's always going to be the cheap one.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, well, that's why gentlemen such as yourself and George Farmer and any English gals out there, or whoever has a passion for this, it's to try to reinvigorate, find other fish nerds, and just try to continue to grow the hobby through whatever means you guys have available. And actually, one of the things I wanted to do, Neil, hold on, it's going to get a little clicky here as I'm going to go to. Give me 1 second. This is fantastic podcast audio right here, folks. As I click and I go to my podcast dashboard. All right, we'll go to. People will be like, "What is Randy doing?" All right, Randy's clicking. We're going to statistics. So what I want to do, Neil, is give you an idea. United Kingdom. What is it?
Go for it.
Hold on. Where's that statistic at? We'll go. What happened to my all-time button? Well, basically, what I'm getting at is I think it's like 10% of the listeners of this podcast are actually in the UK. So what I would want are these fellow like UK fish nerds that are listening to the podcast. So, like, there's people that a lot in Australia and New Zealand, Canada, America, obviously. but a good number like kind of just all over Europe. But yeah, UK is pretty good. I would say UK listeners, reach out to Neil and try to get him plugged in with your club. Maybe Neil will give you a talk on eco. What do you specialize in? Ecotoxicology, was that what it was? Ecotoxicology, parasites, all that good stuff. So yeah, there's definitely UK listeners that are hearing this right now.
Okay.
So you got
that sounds like a good plan.
We need a catchy title for making the hobby strong again in the UK. Something something you could put on a hat.
Perhaps we need our own little network.
Yeah. Yeah, so Neil, let's talk a little bit more than about let's talk about our time in Peru, and in particular the second week. So
okay.
For Empty Amazon, you and I, we were on the 5-6 day expedition on the boat going up the Amazon River and just stopping at all these little drying out little streams and lakes and all that good stuff. So it was definitely dry season, easier to catch the fish, or at least locate where they're going to be. They'll be more concentrated in these smaller bodies of water. Had a fantastic time getting bit by tetras, getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, stabbing myself with pine needles and all that stuff. But it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And that was your third time down, correct?
It is, yeah, third year in a row, third summer in a row. Yeah.
So what was different about this trip for you?
First year we went east. The first year, I think this year we went west, didn't we?
I honestly,
it was a different.
My cardinal direction was so thrown off. I had no idea.
Yeah, you can't tell which direction you're going because that river goes all over the place. It was a different river. It's the same river but different direction. So it literally was different river, slightly different habitats, slightly different water types. I mean, you must have got a feel for that the number of times that we didn't know whether we were on a black water or a white water.
Mm-hmm.
It was the possibility of different fish, and we did get a lot of different fish.
What was there?
That was the main difference, really. I mean, if you went the other way, you wouldn't see that much difference.
I was surprised at how many spots had epistogrammas and just how prevalent and how common epistogrammas are.
Yes, and if you go the opposite direction, it's exactly the same.
Mm.
So you'll get epistogramma all over the place. I do not know why.
Yeah, I guess it's just from an evolutionary standpoint, just that dwarfism allowed them.
I think it's geographics. I think we just happen to be in a region where there are epistogramma.
Oh, you don't think it's something where like they're just kind of all over the place in general?
Yeah, I think they are all over the place, but I can't believe that they're the same density all over the place. I think if you went out of town far enough, I'm sure they'd disappear. They can't be everywhere, surely. Maybe somebody out there knows. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but what I know is if you go east or west, you do get a lot of epistogramma.
Yeah. There definitely were a lot of epistogrammas. Definitely a lot of killies, which we had a big time killie fan on the boat. So I don't know if it was. Do you
remember the first week when we went out on the boat? We went past an area where we said it was the old water supply. And there was a beach, and everybody was partying on the beach.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the second week, since we're going to talk about it, that is a spot that we went fishing. And up there on the bank, there is a small community, which is where we landed. There was a guy up there, you're not going to believe this, he was selling discus. There's discus on that part of the river.
Really?
Yes. And the only difference was I didn't have any fins. They'd literally been eaten off.
Oh, geez.
And then within about 200 yards, we stopped the boat, got out, and we seined for maybe an hour. And I'm not joking you, we got well over 200 Oscars in 6 seines.
Wow.
Yes, it was absolutely jam-packed full of Oscars.
That's so awesome.
We must have had over 200.
So
in an hour.
I was a little sad that we only. And this is with the crew helping us with the two guys, Segundo and God, I'm blanking on his name, Juan Miguel. I mean, these guys are absolute savages when it comes
Juan
to
Miguel
just,
sounds right.
When it comes to, and I say savage in the best possible term, like they're just amazing.
We had a net that looked like something came off the back of the boat. It was about 5 or 6 foot deep. It was about 30 yards long. It was a major, major
Mm.
big seine net, and we were there. We were literally getting 40 or 50 Oscars per pull.
Well, we only got the one the entire trip, and that Segundo
Yeah,
actually got that one. It was one
yeah,
Oscar. This was in the lake with all
yeah,
the jumping angels that I was catching, which I had an absolute
yeah,
blast. And this Oscar was just kind
yeah.
of in like
I was, I
angelfish
was, I was
territory.
shocked, totally shocked at how many fish there were, literally just around the corner from the beach. I mean,
Wow.
absolutely stacked full of fish,
Huh.
stacked full. You don't have to go out of town to catch fish. They are everywhere.
Talk to me about the. So you're saying the discus had their fins eaten off? What was that about?
Yeah, yeah, they were literally almost finless. There was a guy, and they were exactly the same fish that we had that we caught. It's the same fish. They look the same. It's just that the finnage was gone. It's just been nibbled off. And the only thing I can think of is because that's a main river, isn't it? It's a big river. It's not a side stream. So I can only think that it's not so much cover. The guy said he went out night fishing in his little boat, and yeah, he was catching discus on that river.
Interesting.
They were just nibbled to death.
So
They just had almost no finnage.
you don't think it
Every
was
single fin just bitten away.
you don't think it was like poor husbandry of once he caught them and he had them.
No, no, they were nibbled. I looked
Huh.
up them. They said they've been bitten.
Interesting.
Yep, they've been eating each other like they do on the river, as you know.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah,
So then your second week there,
yeah,
what was the purpose, right? So we had stayed 1 week for the expedition. We went back to town.
yeah,
We did all the arranging for
yeah,
the export of our fish. We took off.
yeah.
Neil, you stayed for another week in Iquitos. So what were you doing?
I think about 7 or 8 months ago, I got a little advert through from Big Blue Ocean Cleanup, and it was saying how they're a charity and that they are desperate to try to clear the seas off of out plastics. There's plastics everywhere. Please donate, become a member. We're gonna clean up the oceans. And last year we had that book. Remember the book that ID'd all the fish?
Yep, the Amazon book, the Amazon
If
species.
you read that, there's a really really nice introduction. It basically says that the Amazon is an inland sea. It was an inland sea, and all that's happened is the river level has gone down. So a lot of the fish are ex-sea fish, and that kind of thing. And I just suddenly realised to me, says, "What? You've been around Iquitos. You know how dirty it is. You know how filthy it is. You know how much plastic there is." So I just went, "This is crazy. Why is this guy only helping people if it's in the sea?" So I wrote him a great big long letter saying, the people of Iquitos, they need your help too, and it's an inland sea, and please, you're not telling me that you're only going to help people clean plastics out of the ocean, are you? And he wrote back and said, no, no, go for it. We'll help. What do you want to do? And I went, microplastics. And he went, this is Rory, who's the big boss, and Rory Sinclair. And he went, what do you want to do? And he came back. And well, I said to him, they need education. Let's do an education program. And he wrote back saying, no, no, we want to know if there's plastics in fish. And I went, okay, we'll do it. That's how it happened. We decided between us that we would look to see, because I'd already seen the reports coming out of Brazil, that there's a few papers now that are saying that a lot of the Brazilian food fish that people are eating have got plastics in them. So I only said it as a very minor matter. He came back, no, 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 we don't want to do an education program. We want to know if there's plastics in the fish that the people are eating. And I went, okay, I'll do it. That's what happened. That's
Oh,
how it
nice.
happened.
And then you ended up getting hooked up with a German that was living in Iquitos, right?
No, he did his masters. He's an educated guy. He's settled now in Iquitos. He's from Lima, but he did his masters in a very well-to-do German university, and he speaks very good English. He's got European education.
Oh, that's what. Okay, so he's
Um,
Peruvian that studied in Germany and then went
yeah,
back home. Okay, gotcha.
yeah, and he's open to he's trying to build something there. He's trying to, you know, conserve he's trying to conserve what they've got in the rivers. He's trying to grow what he's got there. He's trying to get people educated. He's trying to help people. He's trying to do a lot of things. And he's open to collaboration. So and he said, okay, look, we were going to do a little, as you know, I did a little bit of parasitology last year, and we talked a little bit about doing some parasitology as well as microplastics. And in the end, I've got some gills. We did do some parasitology, but he allowed me and he helped me to collect these fish so that we can do microplastics.
Nice. And
that's what we did.
And what's this gentleman's name again? Let's give him a shout out.
I am desperately trying to think of his right name right now, and it's really bad.
We'll come back. We'll come back and we'll get it. I'll let you look on your phone. So so to echo that sentiment, there were several people that we had met there. One college age gal who was at the Manatee Center. So we actually saw a manatee getting a physical. 5 people having to lay on top of this manatee to keep it from thrashing around. But these, research scientists in conjunction with, I think it's like Dallas, one of the big Dallas aquariums, having this Amazon manatee rehabilitation center. And so this gal, again, college aged, spoke English just perfect. I'm like, you must have spent some serious time.
Wasn't she? She was a trainee vet, and she was out of Lima as well, and she'd been through every different animal, hadn't she?
Yeah.
She talks about insects, and she talks about all different things that she'd been into, and at the moment she's into a manatee.
Yeah, and she was probably 3rd or 4th year in her bachelor's program, I would guess, and she was talking about how the Peruvians in general are very proud of their country. They're very proud of the Amazon, but in Iquitos, that wouldn't necessarily translate into actuality of what we saw in terms of the debris, unfortunately. And so I think didn't mean to interrupt. They have a problem with the older generation. I've been there for 3 years now. I keep asking questions, and they're of the opinion that the river takes your rubbish away. So all their plastics and all their rubbish, they tend to. In the dry season, it's their habit to throw things out on the river, and then it rains. The river rises, the water level rises, and it takes the rubbish away, and they think it's okay, and that's an ingrained habit. So that is a big part of the problem. And so with talking with this gal, talking with our tour guide at the Manatee Center, this younger generation, trying to spearhead and trying to get these education programs so that those younger generations of Peruvians and Iquitos citizens, they understand that the trash does actually go somewhere, right? It goes to Brazil. One of their jokes was if you drop it in the river,
goes down the river.
It's Brazil's problem. And I think we'll touch on it with probably your works, but those microplastics, it doesn't all necessarily go to Brazil, right? Like some of it's ending up in the fish that you're eating, right? And you don't know that without research and education. So, and not to poo-poo on them and say, oh, they're so bad. From my understanding and watching a show like Mad Men, which it's odd to reference them, but there was a different trash culture here in even this country to what it is now, right? We had to have a whole campaign, a whole public, multiple campaigns to tell people not to litter. Like we actually had to go so far as to fine people because it was so prevalent to just throw trash out of your car as you're driving. We had to fine you hundreds of dollars to stop doing that. So it's decades and decades of kind of social engineering and behavioral correction through monetary punishment to get you to stop leaving your trash. And there's this really funny scene in Mad Men, an American TV show that portrays life in the 50s. And, the family, this, nuclear family, if you will, they go out to a park, they have a wonderful picnic, and when they're done, I think they pretty much just pick up their picnic basket blanket and they leave all their trash on this beautiful green lawn of a park and just bounce. And I think
and that's exactly as you well know, that's exactly how it is in Iquitos, and that's exactly what they do.
Mm-hmm. But they might. And it's so,
they might tie a knot in the plastic bag, but all the rubbish goes into a plastic bag. They tie a knot and they leave it, and then they leave it for the river to take it away. And that is it's a culture, as you know now.
And it's and even if the I assume they had a trash service. I never saw anybody going around to actually pick up
Yeah,
trash.
this year was the first year I saw it. I saw. I don't know what week it was, first week or second. I saw wagons coming around cleaning.
Oh no,
I
we
think
actually did.
last
Yeah,
year.
we did see people. We
Yeah,
did see people cleaning
yeah,
up. And what they do
yes.
for their like public trash receptacles, it looks like what we have here in our parks. Like we have
Mm,
these barbecues, these permanent barbecue fixtures where it's on a very heavy metal
mm,
pole, and then it's just kind of this square with a grate. They had that, but it was made out of rebar, and it's basically this 4 foot elevated basket. And I believe that's where trash bags are supposed to go. But what I'd heard is that when they throw their trash into bags, they tie it up, make a big pile. There was
mm.
there's so many dogs. There's so many loose dogs there, and these aren't necessarily aggressive dogs. There's just so many dogs there that
The street dogs,
the
aren't they?
street
They're
dogs.
mainly
There you
street
go.
dogs.
The
Yeah.
street dogs get into the trash bags, and then they open up the
Hmm.
trash bags, and then the wind comes,
Yeah,
the rains come, and then that's how
and it
we
gets
see
spread around.
exactly. So that's
Yeah.
that doesn't help things either. So there's just I
No.
think the positive takeaway is that with the the awareness, the new generations that are coming up, they know that this is a problem. They know this isn't
I feel
sustainable.
they need a big yeah, I feel they need a big education program.
Oh, for
But
sure, for sure. But the
yeah,
positive is to actually have those citizens like acknowledging that that's a problem, and that they know that they need to educate more. They know they need to spread awareness. I mean, that's something. It's better than nothing.
it's definitely something.
So let's talk about your parasitology research. So you and I,
Okay.
we had the privilege. Well, privilege. I don't know if I want to call it a privilege or not. But you and I, we did some discus dissection. So some of
We did, didn't we, on the
yes.
boat?
So I
Yes.
put out a video, a YouTube video of the Amazon discus farm that we went to, which I should share you the link because I don't know if you've seen it or not, but you're in there a little bit, where we went to that village where they, the kind of the quasi discus farm, and we purchased 30 discus from there, and we ended up losing.
Yeah, he had some holding ponds, didn't he? And
That's
he put them in there, yes.
Yep. So we had ended up losing, I think 10 overnight because of the aeration situation. The boat
Yeah.
power shuts off at night. The air pump shut off, and so unfortunately, just with how we had kept them, we lost 10. And those 10 though
Yeah.
didn't go to waste because they actually served two purposes. One, we ended up actually eating them. So we ate them as a
We
food
did.
fish, which the internet kind of lost their
Hmm.
mind about. Some people were like, "Oh yeah, that's you're not wasting anything." The other half were like, "OMG, you just ate discus. That's just so faux pas."
Hmm.
But the second purpose of it being scientific, so I've actually got footage of us dissecting those discus, taking out their gills, and a couple of them we took out their stomachs. So were you able to actually do some research on that?
The gills are in a pot. They are um, they are preserved, and I can be, and they will be. It depends a lot on money because I mean I did the same thing last year. I ended up doing histology on them, and it's quite an expensive business. I hooked up with a company in Germany. I had my specimens sent to Germany. I had them blocked up. I had the histology done on them, and it takes a long time. And they are ready now to be looked at.
Nice.
So it's not quick. So yeah, in short, I've got them. It's gonna cost me another 300 odd pounds to get them analysed.
Oh wow. And
So
so
yes, we have them. It's just now it's a matter of it's cost me well over £300 last year. It's going to cost me another well over £300 this year to get those analysed, and then to put them in the talk to expand the talk. Yes.
very nice. And so, yeah, and that's definitely something that this is coming out of your own pocket. Like this is pure
Yeah.
scientific hobbyist passion
Hmm.
that you're going
Yeah.
to these lengths to do that. Now, for myself
Yeah.
and those listening, what histology? So, what is break that down for me in like I'm a sixth grader.
Let's try. So you get your gills, you put them into methanol, or ethanol. They're preserved. You would take them out. Um, you 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 get you heat wax up so that the wax becomes fluid. You put your gill in the heated wax. The wax then solidifies, and you then make a very thin slice of that, which is like a couple of microns thick.
Mm.
Then you do something called H&E. You stain it, and then you mount it on a slide, and then you look down the microscope, and you can see what you can see.
Oh, in that
And we're
process.
talking about microns. We're talking about a sliver which is a couple of microns thick.
And that process is called histology.
That's called histology. Yes.
Oh, okay, very cool. I thought in my head I was like, oh, histology must be a lab running an analysis and then sending you back the results. But histology is actually just the creation of the slides.
Yes, that's the process of, yeah, I mean, the analysis, well, you need an expert for the analysis. So the lady that I talked about, she has a PhD in parasitology. So I will go around hers, we will stick them under the microscope, and we will look for what we can see.
Okay, Neil. So then, the rest of your time, then. So we've talked about now the discus and histology
Hmm.
and those and the gills. So that probably have to have you on for a second time on to talk about the results of that whenever you get that done.
Okay.
The plastics then in the native food fishes. So talk
Yeah,
to me about that.
microplastics. Well, I think what the idea generally was to, how can I put it? To try to ascertain whether the plastics in the waters around Iquitos is relevant. So what I did was I tried to get fish which are in and around the town, and then I tried to get some fish which are from out of town, further away from town. Um, so we did a lot of local fishing, and then we actually, I mean, you're in the manatee farm. The IIAP are next door, and they've got their own ponds. So those are not on the river. They're not on the river system. So those are probably a little bit less plasticky, if you like, less plastic there. And then we went fishing in the rivers around town, as I've already said, with the Oscars. And then I went down to the market and I bought fish from out of town. So I think I have in total 88 fish to analyze at the moment.
Oh wow.
We're waiting.
And so just to
Yeah,
make sure I'm on the same page, and maybe
yeah,
this will help some
yeah,
listeners, when we talk about
yeah.
plastics, we're not talking
Mm,
about we're going to dissect a fish and find a grocery shopping bag inside. These are
no,
microplastics that, as plastic kind of
yeah.
tumbles in the water, like it just breaks
They're,
down.
it took me a long time to work it out. It's very small pieces. So they might be something you might see with your eye, or slightly smaller, but they are pieces of plastic which are so small that you may or may not see them with your eye. There's two basic techniques. The fish that I caught on site were about 3 or 4 inches big. So what you can do is you put the whole fish into a solution. You dissolve the fish away so that all you've got is mush, and then you sieve it for the small pieces of plastic. The other way of doing it is what you said before, which is the guts. A lot of the fish I took were bigger fish, like the Oscars. They were 7, 8, 9 inches long. We opened them up and took the whole of the gut, put that in a pot, and then they're simply trying to find the pieces in the gut. So you wash it out, you dissolve the gut away, and then you try to analyze it from then, try and find the small pieces of plastic from then. So you end up with a count, if you like, a number of pieces of plastic per fish.
And have you done the actual count and analysis on that yet, or is that still coming?
No, I have to find someone to do it.
Hmm.
I am struggling to find someone willing. I've got someone I hope will do it, but that's called science. It's process. There are, as I've now worked out, unfortunately, it's a very new science. There are very few places that actually do it. Full stop. It's as simple as that. There are literally a handful of people that are doing it. It's so new. So I have to try to persuade one of these people to analyze my specimens for me.
Huh. Wow, that's interesting. And so, what kind of what kind of methods are they using to actually count and detect plastic then?
It's under a microscope. You
Okay.
would have it in a petri dish, um, and you're looking for small, very small pieces.
Huh.
As I understand it at the moment, that is how the method works. So the science is to digest away the rest of the fish, to leave a mush with plastic in, and you have to go looking for the plastic.
Oh, interesting. That is
That's how it works.
yeah, that's definitely fascinating. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I guess I figure maybe they have some like laser spectrometer thing that can you shoot it across
No,
the
I
mush and it
I
counts
think it
the.
I think it's unfortunately I think Randy it's more basic than that. I think it's a microscope and a lot
Wow,
of time and effort.
wow. Hey, so anybody in the UK like this sounds like we need a
Well, it doesn't
crowdsource.
have to be. It doesn't have to be
Well,
in the
no, no.
UK.
Hear,
I
hear me
mean,
out. Hear me out though. So somebody in the UK. Well, I guess you guys have the channel, so maybe it could be a French person, right? But somebody close
yeah, yeah.
by, let's say a bachelor's of science level undergrad student that's looking to get some kind of research project going on. That like
Yeah,
that's
MSc or PhD, that
that's
would be
free labor
ideal.
for you right there, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's also you have to think about the other point of view. I spent hundreds of pounds last year, £100 this year. I've got 88 specimens. If someone wants to charge me, it's 88 times whatever they want to charge me per
Ooh.
specimen. Gets rather expensive.
Yeah, definitely. That really does. Now, in working with the gentleman in charge of the, yeah, I completely spaced on the name.
Herman, his first name is Herman.
Oh, Herman. Okay, so Herman, but the plastics guy, the one that's attacking the
Yeah.
plastic in the ocean. So, is there any grant money to help fund this part of the research?
Um, Big Blue Ocean Cleanup is a charity. And the only promise I've got from him at the moment is he will contribute. So until I know what the costs are, we
Mm,
don't know. All I can say is, um, they've been very good to me so far. And Rory Sinclair, big shout out to him. Very nice guy, very friendly, very helpful, totally up for it. I think Big Blue Ocean Cleanup are worldwide. So look them up. If you look on their website, there is a page on there for microplastics, and you will see which organisms they have found in which oceans um, that contain microplastics. So anybody can look that up. I'm literally trying to find someone to give me a price.
oh, interesting. Yeah, so we can definitely put a link to Big Blue Ocean in the show notes for this episode, so that way
Yeah,
people can just.
they're called Big Blue Ocean Cleanup.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And so, any other fun, crazy stories from that second week in Iquitos before I let you go, Neil?
I don't think so. I think we better leave it there.
All right, Neil Clarke, sir. Thank you very much for coming on. Are you going to do? Is year four going to happen to 2020?
I'm not sure. I'm definitely going back. It's a definite maybe, but I'm not sure. Three in a row is quite an effort. Four in a row, I don't know. We'll see.
Four in a row.
We'll see.
Four in a row.
How
You're a
about
rock
you?
star.
Are you going to go two in a row? Or are you going to go back next year?
I can't with the current family
There you go.
situation. I don't think I'll be able
Yeah.
to do that.
Okay, that's a shame.
My wife's already going to give me the
Do you think
pass and
you will go back?
oh,
Are you
for
going to
sure.
make it back?
For sure, yeah. So in November of
It's
this year, I'm going to Shanghai. I'm going to go to SIPS, which is the
yeah.
China International Pet Show. So that's already going to be
Okay.
a pretty big strain on the family. We've got family flying up to help me
Fantastic.
cover there.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
told everybody in the
Okay.
crew, I'm like, 2 years. Give me 2 years. I'll be back down here.
Yeah.
And if it's not Iquitos, man, collecting in Southeast Asia, collecting in Africa, just
Yeah.
that one trip. I was literally and figuratively bit by the bug, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To
Yeah.
like really do this collecting thing. Like it was
Yeah.
such an
You've been
amazing
bitten.
time.
You will be out there again as soon as you possibly can. You'll
Were
be out
you
there doing it.
were you on the
Yeah.
night? Did you go with us on the night fishing trip where I had to keep my feet in the bucket of water?
No,
You weren't
I
on that when
must have missed that.
when we
That
were
must have been the first. Is that the first week? No, that's
yeah,
not. I
yeah,
was with you.
that was the
When
first
was
week.
that?
You were there. You weren't there?
When?
It was where we
No, I must have not done the night fishing then.
so yeah, we went out and we did night fishing since we're talking about being bitten by
Yeah,
bugs. And Devin, tour leader extraordinaire, the guy
yeah,
that practically lives
yeah,
in the Amazon, he went in shorts and a t-shirt. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll do a long
yeah, yeah,
sleeve and shorts and just my
yeah.
flip-flops. I'll be all right. We'll be in the boat. We'll be moving.
No,
The mosquitoes,
no.
man, they loved me. And so thank God we had extra
Yeah,
collecting buckets. So I filled a
yeah.
bucket up with water and I
You put your
submerged
feet
my
in the
feet
bucket.
in the bucket so it was up to my
Yeah,
knees and then I was able to cover like the other
yeah,
part, the exposed part of my skin because
yeah,
they
yeah,
were hammering me so hard. It was such a bad mistake
Yeah.
to not wear pants and shoes. Oh, I'll never do that again.
You learn.
I learned.
You learn. You,
I
you, you go
learned.
1 year, you learn most of the stuff in the first year,
Oh
what
my
to do and what not
goodness.
to do. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And it was terrible, but man, it was so cool. It was such a good experience. So, all right, Neil, it is it's like 11 o'clock over there in the UK. It is super late, man. It's been wonderful connecting with you. And yeah, Neil, thank you so much.
No, thank you for your time, Randy. It's been great fun. Thanks very much.